In the year 1513, a man named Piri Reis was working on a new map. We know him today as an admiral in the Ottoman Navy, one who helped conquer Rhodes and raid the Italian coast. But he also spent years compiling this map, which would be considered revolutionary even by today's standards. That's because he claimed that his chart was based on earlier ones, some so old they had been forgotten. In fact, he said they dated back to Alexander the Great's conquest of Egypt. And they didn't just show the world as it was then, but the world as it is now. The Piri Reis map still exists today, and it shouldn't. Let's take a look at 5 things that make it impossible, starting with the one that made it famous. Number 5, Antarctica. The Piri Reis map shows the continent of Antarctica without any ice cap. That shouldn't be possible. After all, this is a map drawn nearly 500 years ago, and Antarctica's ice cap wasn't scientifically confirmed until 1820, with the first explorers landing on its shores in the 1840s. So how could this Turkish admiral have mapped it almost 300 years before anyone else? What's more, the map shows not only the continent itself, but features such as its mountains and valleys, which makes it seem like Piri Reis knew the continent quite well. So did he sail around Antarctica, charting its shape and features? And if so, why haven't we heard of his voyage? And how did he return safely, since the entire continent was covered in ice when modern explorers began to reach it? All these questions make Piri Reis's map seem impossible, but that isn't even the strangest thing about it. For number 4, let's turn our attention to South America, where we can see another feature that seems impossible: the coastline. The way it's drawn seems very precise, which is already surprising. Considering the time period, most maps of the Americas at the time of Piri Reis were crudely drawn and barely had any detail. But Piri Reis shows almost the exact same coastline we know today, right down to the length of the Rio de la Plata estuary. But there is a catch. Like many maps of its time, the Piri Reis map has a nasty habit of stretching the globe a bit too much, so that east and west meet. So while at first glance the Americas seem to line up perfectly, upon closer inspection, it becomes clear that this is not the case. In fact, the longitude of several South American cities is wrong on this map, including Lima, Peru, which is significantly off. This means that either Piri Reis was a genius who managed to map the entire coastline with incredible precision, or he simply copied it from an older source. Speaking of older sources, that brings us to number 3, the ancient source maps. When Piri Reis published his map, he said it was based on 2 ancient Greek charts, one from Ptolemy and one from an Alexandrian cartographer named Crates. Both of these men lived thousands of miles away from the Americas, and neither of them is known to have ever set foot on the continents they charted. And yet somehow, their maps were incredibly accurate. Well, at least by the standards of the time, the Piri Reis map is covered with place names that appear on no other maps from the 1500s, likely because those places simply didn't exist. There are no islands in the Atlantic Ocean between Africa and the Americas. There are no huge peninsulas jutting out from northern Brazil. And there are no Great Lakes along the equator. Yet here they are on the Piri Reis map, matching locations on modern maps almost perfectly. And if that weren't enough, there are also places on the Piri Reis map that don't match anywhere in the Americas. For example, there is a large island off the coast of West Africa that doesn't exist today, and there is a giant archipelago in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that has never been seen by modern eyes. Did Piri Reis add these to fool forgers, or did he really copy them from ancient Greek charts that themselves were copied from an even older unknown source? And speaking of unknown sources, that brings us to number 2, unknown longitude. Now we can see the real reason why the Piri Reis map is impossible, because when we compare it to modern maps, we can see that the longitude of many of the places shown on the map is completely off. If you want to chart the world accurately, you need to know the longitude of each location. Without it, your map will be full of errors. And there are lots of ways to determine longitude, like using a sextant and knowing your starting point. But none of these methods were perfect, and sailors often got lost at sea and never knew exactly where they ended up. That means that on most maps of the age, whole countries are in the wrong place. You might find a city in the right spot, but then its neighboring city is in the wrong part of the continent. But look at the Piri Reis map again. Compare the longitude of the Brazilian coast with modern maps, and you'll see that every single city is in the right place. Even the small fishing villages have the exact same longitude as they do now. How is that possible? The only way to measure longitude with that kind of precision would have been with a device like a chronometer, which was invented in the early 1700s, more than 200 years after the Piri Reis map was made. So if the map is wrong, and it definitely is, then what is it doing showing Antarctica without ice? Why does it show features of the Brazilian coast with perfect precision? And why does it list places that don't exist today? Is it just an elaborate hoax? Did Piri Reis somehow manage to sail around Antarctica? Or did he really copy ancient maps that were based on a lost civilization? One archaeologist believes he may have found the answer. Paul Baer, Professor Emeritus of History at Memorial University of Newfoundland, believes the Piri Reis map is connected to a mysterious library mentioned in old texts. According to legend, it belonged to a secret society of monks tasked with preserving forbidden knowledge. They kept it hidden deep beneath the Janissary barracks in Istanbul, wrapped in lead so the magnetic field of nearby Mecca wouldn't interfere. But eventually it was discovered by Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, who ordered his own copy to be made. He then gave the original to Piri Reis to study. And that's how Piri Reis made his own map, by copying from an even older source. Of course, this is just a theory, though perhaps not an unreasonable one. And that's why we saved the last spot on our list for number 1, the lost library connection. This goes back to the main mystery of the pyramid. What happened to it? According to legend, Sultan Mehmed put the original map in his library alongside other ancient texts, where it was lost for centuries. Then, in the early 1900s, the barracks were being demolished, and archaeologists found a hidden chamber filled with ancient texts. Soon after, the Piri Reis map was discovered among them, wrapped in lead and labeled as such. The problem is that there is no evidence that this story is true. Nobody saw the map in the 1800s. And when the Janissary barracks were being demolished, nobody noticed that there was a secret library hidden inside. What's more, the story of the map's discovery only appeared in print in 1929, more than half a century after the barracks were destroyed. And the story conveniently lets the Ottomans off the hook for any wrongdoing. After all, they found the map by accident. They didn't steal it from somewhere else. So is this story true? Where did the map come from? And what was the lost library? As for the map itself, we know it wasn't forged. That much is certain. If it was, it would have been very easy to change the dates on it. But checking the materials used and the writing implements, experts have determined that it really was made in 1513. But everything else is a mystery, and that's why we say this map shouldn't exist. It contradicts everything we know about world history, from exploration to science to geography. But it does exist, which means one of three things. Either Piri Reis sailed around Antarctica hundreds of years before we did, or he copied an ancient map that was based on an even older lost civilization, or we're missing something. Maybe there's a key to decoding the Piri Reis map that scientists just haven't found yet. So for now, the Piri Reis map remains a riddle, one we're still trying to solve. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, check out the series. There's something new every week, and don't forget to subscribe for more echoes of the past.